This is episode 1 of Ethics and Culture Cast from the Notre Dame Center for Ethics and Culture. Welcome to episode 1 of Ethics and Culture Cast from the Notre Dame Center for Ethics and Culture. I'm Ken Hellenius, the communications specialist at the center. In this inaugural episode, we'll sit down with the center's director, Professor of Law Carter Snead, to learn a bit about his background and the mission of the Center for Ethics and Culture, both on the Notre Dame campus and in the wider public square. Let's head into the Maritime Library for this week's conversation. I'm sitting with Carter Snead, the William P. and Hazel B. White Director of the Center for Ethics and Culture at the University of Notre Dame. Carter is a professor of law and concurrent professor of political science at the university. Welcome, Carter.
It's good to join you.
Tell me a bit about yourself. What did you do prior to moving to South Bend?
Yeah. Before joining the faculty at Notre Dame in 2005, I was the general counsel to President Bush's Council on Bioethics, which was a White House advisory commission which gave advice to the White House and other aspects of the executive branch of government, different administrative agencies, advice about the ethical and public policy and legal dimensions of advances in biomedical science and biotechnology. It was chaired by Dr. Leon Cass, who is an eminent physician, scientist, and practitioner of not just medicine and science, but also an eminent scholar of the humanities as well, taught for many, many decades at the University of Chicago.
Wonderful. And what brought you to Notre Dame?
Well, the things I liked most about what I was doing at the President's Council on Bioethics, the writing and the reading and the being part of a scholarly community seemed like a natural transition to move into academia professionally. And in fact, Mary Ann Glendon, who was a member of President Bush's Council on Bioethics, a great mentor and friend of mine, when I started thinking about next steps for moving on from the White House Advisory Commission, she said, you should really think about legal academia. And if you do, there's really only one place that you should go, and that's the University of Notre Dame.
And she teaches at Harvard.
She does, so it was quite an endorsement.
Yeah, wow. So as a professor now, what do you teach?
I teach law and bioethics is my primary area of teaching and research. So I teach a seminar on law and bioethics. I teach health law, which obviously touches and concerns many bioethical themes. I teach torts, which may be counterintuitive, but in fact is essential to the regulation of medicine in the United States. The primary mechanism that we have in U.S. law for regulating the practice of medicine, aside from licensure and certification at the front end of the practitioner's career, is the medical malpractice system. That's really how we regulate in real time the practice of medicine in the U.S.
I want to take a step back. What exactly is the Center for Ethics and Culture?
Well, it's a great question. It's the Center for Ethics and Culture is an interdisciplinary center here at the University of Notre Dame, and its purpose is to share the richness of the Catholic moral and intellectual tradition through teaching and research and student formation, as well as public engagement in the public square, both domestically and internationally. Notre Dame, as you know, has a very significant footprint worldwide, not just in academia, but it is involved in many different public questions, and experts from Notre Dame are involved in many different public issues. And in the Center for Ethics and Culture, one of its primary purposes is to bring Notre Dame's voice into the public square on these difficult and contentious questions. And the area of focus that we bring the Notre Dame's voice to in this context primarily is bioethics and issues involving a culture of life.
How were you involved with the Center for Ethics and Culture prior to becoming the director?
Yeah, so when I joined the faculty in the law school in 2005, I had already heard about the Center for Ethics and Culture, which was founded in 1999 by philosopher David Solomon. I'd heard that it was a very interesting place for interdisciplinary study and engagement and dialogue and scholarly programming involving the Catholic moral and intellectual tradition, but also really a whole wide array of disciplines in particular, there was a long-standing focus on medical ethics. David Solomon was an applied ethicist here at Notre Dame for many, many years and was an eminent scholar of medical ethics. And coming from the President's Council on Bioethics, that was a natural attraction to me to get involved with the center. In fact, when I think it was the very first fall that I joined the faculty of the law school that I delivered the Schmidt Lecture, which was a lecture that used to be sponsored by the Center for Ethics and Culture, focusing on the interconnections between science, technology, medicine, and the humanities.
So what role does the center play on campus?
So yeah, the Center for Ethics and Culture has multiple roles on campus. If you in the most abstract sense, what we're trying to do is to help the university realize its distinctive Catholic intellectual mission in the form that a university center can do. So we obviously sponsor academic programming. We sponsor research. We have researchers, visiting fellows. We also spend a lot of time forming our extraordinary students at Notre Dame, both undergraduates and graduate students. We have a program called the Soren Fellows Program, which we started a few years ago, which now has 150 students, mostly undergraduates, but also some graduate students. We provide them with mentoring. We give them, we do programming, especially for them. They have special access to our visiting scholars and speakers, including not just eminent professors from around the world, but also Supreme Court justices, Academy Award-winning filmmakers, and the like. We just want to give our Notre Dame students the best possible integrated experience they can have in terms of their intellectual life, their spiritual life, their cultural formation. And so this is a major piece of what we do on campus. One of the greatest sources of satisfaction to me is when I see a kid who I don't know wearing a Notre Dame Center for Ethics and Culture T-shirt. It's a significant footprint in the student population, and one of the major elements of our student formation program is a robust summer internship program. These kids are high achieving, they're ambitious, they're very good kids, and what we do is we use our vast network of connections around the world in a whole variety of contexts, in Congress and nonprofits and the Curia in Rome. I'm a member of the Pontifical Academy for Life, and so we send summer interns, send our students all over the world during the summer. We pay for it, we help place them, and we supervise them in a wide variety of summer experiences, which both gives them an enriching experience, of course, but also adds value to the work of these institutions that we care about, and possibly lays the groundwork for these kids ultimately joining as permanent members of these institutions and perhaps assuming leadership roles at some point in the future.
That's awesome. So that's on campus. What does the center offer the world beyond the confines of Notre Dame?
Yeah, so we have a relatively new book series, actually several book series, which projects Notre Dame's presence into elite academia. We have 4 book series, actually. We have a book series called Catholic Ideas for a Secular World, which aims to take not exclusively Catholic authors, but ideas that resonate with the Church's teaching over millennia relating to the true and the good and the beautiful and the human dignity and the common good. We try to take eminent authors and provide a platform where they can publish their scholarship and their writings. Our first volume in the Catholic Ideas for a Secular World was actually not even written by a Catholic, but rather by Gil Meilander, who is, to my mind, probably the most interesting Christian bioethicist in the world today. He was the student of the eminent Paul Ramsey at Princeton University. He served on the President's Council on Bioethics, and he's a permanent fellow. A fellowship is named for Paul Ramsey here at the Center for Ethics and Culture. And while he was here, he wrote a beautiful book, a theological, philosophical, and literary reflection on adoption. And it's an extraordinary book. It's called Not by Nature, but by Grace. And it's a fantastic volume. You can order it from the Notre Dame Press website, and it's made a big splash. We just published another volume by Father Julian Caron, leader of the worldwide Catholic Lay Renewal Movement, Communion and Liberation. It's a collection of his essays. It's already getting a great deal of positive critical attention. And that is one way in which we project Notre Dame's presence outside of the university into elite academia in a genuinely countercultural way. We also have, and this is really something that new with my assuming the leadership of the center in 2012, a really robust public policy program. That is, we have a network of public policy experts in a wide variety of areas. But again, the common thread is human dignity, especially as it relates to bioethics. We have an amazing woman named Mary O'Callahan who has got her doctorate here at Notre Dame, who focuses on persons with disabilities and the unique vulnerability of persons with disabilities in a culture that is intolerant of imperfection. And so she runs a program and frequently testifies in state and federal venues, legislative venues, about the dangers of sort of prenatal screening for children with disabilities so that those children would be eliminated by abortion. Defending the disabled, especially the cognitively disabled, is a main priority of the Center for Ethics and Culture, and Mary O'Callahan is an extraordinary contributor to that effort. She has a child, a beautiful son, Tommy, who has Down syndrome, and our love for Tommy and the great gift that he is gives us further encouragement and motivation to continue to try to educate people about how special these people are and how they're really a gift to the world and to us, and we would lose something dramatic if we continue down the pathway of eliminating these beautiful people. So that is one feature of our work in the public policy square through the work of our fellows, Mary O'Callahan being a great example of that. I obviously do a lot of work in the legislative context. I do congressional testimony. I author white papers and provide advice, both formal and informal, to different policymakers and elected officials around the world on matters that relate to bioethics and building up a culture of life. We have formal programming at the Center for Ethics and Culture, most in this vein as well. Most prominently, we run a program called the Vita Institute, which is a week-long, intensive, interdisciplinary training program for leaders of the pro-life movement worldwide. We've educated over 250 of leaders from around the world, people that are not just advocates, but also people who work in service, who provide care to women facing crisis pregnancies, people who provide homes for women who are parenting their children in difficult situations, people trying to heal people whose lives have been broken by the horrors of abortion. It's an extraordinary program. We had a large cohort of leaders this year from Africa and Europe, Canada, Latin America. It's a great program where we focus on educating these amazing leaders in the subject matters that are relevant to promoting a culture of life: embryology, law, philosophy, social science, communications. And we do site visits to highly successful programs here in South Bend, the Women's Care Center, which is an extraordinary crisis pregnancy center, as well as Hannah's House, which is a highly successful maternal group home. We do site visits and have for purposes of forming our participants in best practices. We've now begun to export the Vita Institute at the invitation of various archbishops and cardinals. Archbishop Gomez invited us to Los Angeles to do a sort of a compressed version of the Vita Institute last summer. It was very successful. About 200 people from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles came. This January, we'll be going to New York at the invitation of Cardinal Dolan to do the same thing in New York. We're scheduled to do a Vita Institute in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, at the invitation of Cardinal DiNardo. We've received invitations from other members of the church, other organizations, both here in the U.S. as well as abroad.
What is it that makes the Notre Dame Center for Ethics and Culture distinctive from ethics centers at other universities? Many Catholic universities have these, and many, secular institutes do as well.
Yeah, we're very different. I mean, if you were to look at the Center for Ethics and Culture and compare it to other ethics centers, academic ethics centers, you'd notice some dramatic differences, and I think they're interesting differences. That is, first of all, we are heavily interdisciplinary. We are not just an ethics center, but we focus on ethics and culture because we take our intellectual inspiration from our permanent senior fellow, Alistair McIntyre, who understands that ethical principles and ethical norms are best understood, really only most richly understood through traditions and practices. And so culture becomes an essential focus of what we do. And we believe that the humanities, literature, art, music, architecture, sculpture, and the like, capture and convey deep human truths that are relevant to what we're trying to explore and share. We are unapologetically Catholic. We believe that at the world's most prominent Catholic university, it's important that we be faithful to our own tradition while we remain in conversation with other traditions as well. So I think our emphasis on culture and traditions and practices distinguish us from most other ethics centers, our interdisciplinarity. But also I would say the fact that we're at Notre Dame distinguishes us. Notre Dame is, in my judgment, a unique educational institution of higher learning. It is unapologetically Catholic. Its intellectual atmosphere is deepened and made more robust because of that, not in spite of it. Some of the most interesting people in the world have come to Notre Dame to join the faculty here because of its unique mission, its unique Catholic mission, which stands alongside and again complements and is integrated with its deep commitment to being a world-class research university that provides unparalleled undergraduate education. And really what we do here at the Center for Ethics and Culture is try to help Notre Dame realize all of its goals, both for academic excellence, student formation, as well as deep, deep Catholic mission and witness. What we do at the Center for Ethics and Culture really is threefold. We do academic programming and research, which includes our publication series, our conferences, and so on. We do student formation, which I've already described, and we do public policy work. In all three of those contexts, we try to bear witness to the inalienable dignity of every human life with a special emphasis on those who have special needs. So just a few recent examples. We administer Notre Dame's Evangelium Vitae Medal Award. It's the most important award for heroism and lifetime achievement for pro-life, for the pro-life context. This past year, we honored the Jerome Lejeune Foundation. And we chose the Jerome Lejeune Foundation because their namesake, servant of God Jerome Lejeune, who co-discovered the chromosomal abnormality that's associated with Down syndrome, dedicated his life to defending special needs children, not just to do research that might help alleviate their symptoms or possibly cure them, but also to advocate for them in a world and a culture that sees them as a burden and seeks to eliminate them. The Jerome Lejeune Foundation is both a research foundation and an advocacy organization worldwide, and it's just a beautiful witness to the intrinsic dignity of special needs people. And so we honored them with this Lifetime Achievement Award. It was a wonderful event. 500 people came. Mass was the Basilica at Notre Dame was filled. The bishop presided over Mass. Father Bill Lees, who's a vice president for mission engagement and church relations, presided over the dinner with us as well. It was a moment where an institution that is rich and powerful, the University of Notre Dame, took an evening to honor those who fight for the weakest and most vulnerable special needs people among us. So not only were there former ambassadors to the Holy See and bishops and other powerful people at the event, the reception itself included the presence of many, many families with members and loved ones who have special needs. So that's one way that we seek to advance a culture of life with respect to those who suffer from disabilities.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about the work of the Center for Ethics and Culture?
No, I just think that what we do at the center is a labor of love for the University of Notre Dame and as the University of Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a special obligation as a result of its extraordinary gifts and resources and the special place it occupies in the imagination of the American public as well as people around the world, that we do stand to be, and we do stand up as the most important Catholic university that there is. And Father Jenkins has said many times, you know, if Yale closed tomorrow, there would always be Harvard. But the University of Notre Dame is distinct and unique, and it has to flourish and it has to succeed. And what we do at the Center for Ethics and Culture is to try to be a primary engine of the university's mission, both academically, but also normatively for our students and our faculty and staff and leadership, as well as the many friends and alumni of the university around the world.
Well, Carter Snead, Director of the Center for Ethics and Culture, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you to Carter Snead, Director of the Notre Dame Center for Ethics and Culture. You can learn more about the center by visiting ethicscenter.nd.edu. You can subscribe to Ethics and Culture Cast, which is released every other Thursday during the academic year, by visiting ethicscenter.nd.edu/podcast. Our theme music is I Dunno by Grapes, licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution License. We'll see you next time on Ethics and Culture Cast. Until then, make good decisions.